Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's going on, everybody? So John Heyman just dropped something that honestly caught me completely off guard, and I think it's going to catch a lot of you off guard too. We're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays and their pursuit of a free agent pitcher. Yes, you heard that right. A pitcher. Not an outfielder, not an infielder, but a starting pitcher. And the name that's being thrown around is one that I've mentioned on this channel before, but this new development from Heyman puts things in a completely different light. We're going to break down exactly what he said, what it means for the Blue Jays rotation going forward, and why this could actually make a ton of sense, even though some people are going to hate it. On top of that, we've got a really encouraging prospect update on a player who is not getting nearly enough attention right now. So stick around because there's a lot to unpack here. All right, so here's what happened. John Heyman was doing a Bleacher Report live stream, and he ranked his top 5 suitors for Framber Valdez. And the order goes like this: Orioles, Blue Jays, Tigers, Giants, Braves. He went as far as to say that he's confident it will be one of those 5 teams. He also mentioned that he doesn't think the Mets are in on Framber or Zach Gallen, which is interesting because the Mets have been linked to pretty much every big name this offseason. But the fact that Heyman has the Blue Jays at number 2 on this list, that's a notable development. And it raises a lot of questions about how the front office views the current rotation. Now, before we go any further, let me just say this. The Orioles are heavy favorites to land Framber Valdez. I'm not saying the Blue Jays are going to get him, but the fact that they're even being mentioned as a serious suitor tells us something important. It tells us that they're still actively looking at the starting pitching market, and that gives us a little bit of insight into how they view their current rotation. Are they planning on moving Jose Berrios? Are they concerned about Shane Bieber's availability? Are they worried about how many innings Trey Savage can give them? Or is this just a case of strengthening a strength and adding depth in case things go sideways? Ben Nicholson-Smith has dropped a few breadcrumbs about the Jays' interest in Valdez over the past couple of weeks, and now Heyman is confirming that they're legitimately in the mix. And here's the thing. If Framber Valdez's market has fallen short of expectations, which it clearly has, then the Blue Jays should absolutely pounce on this opportunity. I would very much enjoy watching Framber Valdez start games in 2026 wearing a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. Strictly from a baseball standpoint, this guy is really, really good. Now, I know there's baggage. There's the incident where he intentionally threw at his own catcher, and I get that some people are going to have concerns about whether he fits the clubhouse vibe. I don't know if he's the right personality fit, and that's a valid concern. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to focus on the player because as a pitcher, Framber Valdez brings a lot to the table. He's a workhorse, he's reliable, and he's exactly the type of guy you want eating innings in the middle of your rotation. Here's what's interesting. The person who aggregated Heyman's comments added this caveat. They said, I should probably add this since a lot of Jays fans are talking about it. I feel like Heyman alluded to having the Jays ranked as high as he did because the market is that bad for Valdez, and Toronto is one of the few teams that can afford him after missing out on Kyle Tucker. And I think that's probably accurate. I don't think the Jays are actively pursuing Valdez right this second, but his market has fallen so low that this might be one of those situations where the front office looks at the acquisition cost and says, you know what, this is actually reasonable. Let's go for it. And honestly, I think it makes a ton of sense for a couple of reasons. First, the Baltimore Orioles are the number 1 team on the radar to land Framber Valdez. They need starting pitching. They added Pete Alonso, they made a bunch of moves, but they still need arms. If the Blue Jays swoop in and sign Framber, they accomplish 2 things at once. They add a legitimate innings eater to their rotation, and they prevent a division rival from getting better. That's not nothing. Second, let's look at the current rotation. Dylan Cease, Kevin Gausman, Shane Bieber, Trey Savage, Cody Poteet, Jose Berrios. On the surface, that's an elite starting rotation. Cease and Gausman are as reliable as it gets. Berrios can be too if they keep him on the team. But you don't really know what you're getting out of Bieber, Savage, and Poteet. Cody Poteet has never started a game at the major league level. He's had some brief stints with the Pirates as a reliever back in 2020 and 2021, but he's never been a starting pitcher in the big leagues. So how many innings can you realistically rely on him for? Trey Savage is going to be great. I fully expect him to pitch 100-plus innings and have a stellar year, but he's young, and you can never be too safe with a guy that valuable. You don't want to overwork him. And then there's Shane Bieber, who we don't even know is going to be ready for opening day. Ross Atkins said his availability is in doubt, so there's real uncertainty there. So when you look at it from that perspective, adding Framber Valdez actually makes a lot of sense. Strengthen a strength. Go out and do it. Because the guy is good for 200 innings a year, basically. In 2023, he threw 198 innings. In 2024, he threw 176. In 2025, he threw 196. He's not necessarily an elite pitcher. He's not in the upper echelon, but he's an elite innings eater, and that's something this team could absolutely use. Now, they could also bring back Chris Bassett in that role, but Framber Valdez has a much higher ceiling and I think a higher floor as well. He's also a lefty, which the Jays don't have right now outside of Yusei Kikuchi, who I don't think will factor into the rotation. Framber pitches to contact, and the Blue Jays have one of the best defensive infields in all of baseball. That's a perfect marriage. His projected market before it crashed was 6 years, $200 million. I don't think it's going to get there. The Jays are definitely not giving him that. But if the market has crashed as far as it seems to have crashed, could they entertain something like 3 years, $100 million? Or maybe 3 years, $126 million like Zach Wheeler got? I think they could, especially if the Orioles don't want to spend that kind of money, which they typically don't. The Jays could take, let's say, $100 million, not the allocation they had for Kyle Tucker because that was a special circumstance, but they could offer him a short-term deal. And if Framber wants a long-term deal, maybe the Jays will be willing to step up more than the Orioles. And then his camp will say, hey, can we work something out with Toronto? There are a lot of moving parts here, but it's notable that Jon Heyman is saying this just weeks away from spring training. I actually love the fit from a baseball standpoint, though I don't love the incident with the catcher, and I don't know how he fits in the clubhouse. But strictly as a player, I think this could work really well. Now, let me switch gears for a second because I want to talk about prospects. There was a new name added to a top 100 list recently, and it's a Blue Jays prospect. Kiley McDaniel, who's an ESPN scout, has Johnny King ranked at number 85 in his top 100 prospects. Different scouts and analysts have different rankings, obviously, but the Jays' farm system is looking fantastic right now, and Johnny King is someone who deserves more attention. Last year in the lower levels, he put up a 2.48 ERA in 15 starts. This is a guy who has suddenly caught the eye of a lot of different analysts and scouts. And when you think about it, Keith Law just put 3 Blue Jays prospects in his top 100. Now you add Johnny King to the mix, and the Jays have a ton of young starting pitchers they can either include in trade packages or potentially plug into the rotation down the line. For the first time in a long time, the Blue Jays are entering a season with an elite team and a farm system that's actually in really good shape. I'm not saying it's an elite prospect pool, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was a year ago. The team is in such a good spot right now. Just take a minute and appreciate what they've built. Keep an eye on Johnny King. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people next season. Same with guys like Juan Sanchez, Jorik Paniagua, Arjun Nimala, and even JoJo Parker, the recent first-round pick. The future is bright, and that's something worth celebrating.